"It's my daughter's necklace," said the Queen. But what the poor baker revealed shocked everyone. Once upon a time, in a kingdom called Rosevale, where castle towers kissed the clouds and gardens bloomed with roses all year round, lived Queen Isabella. They said she was the richest woman in 7 kingdoms, but her wealth was only surpassed by her pride. By her side had grown her only daughter, Princess Catherine, beautiful as the full moon, but with a heart corrupted by the same vices as her mother. That golden autumn, the castle buzzed with preparations. Princess Catherine was about to marry Prince Edward, heir to the neighboring kingdom of Stonevale. To celebrate the engagement, Queen Isabella had organized the most sumptuous banquet the kingdom had ever seen. Barrels of wine from the finest vintages were brought from the cellars, whole boars roasted on spits, and the kitchens worked day and night. Among the army of servants preparing the feast was a woman named Margaret. She was the castle baker, widowed 3 winters ago, mother of 3 small children who slept in a damp little room near the ovens. Her hands, marked by work, created the softest and most fragrant breads in the entire kingdom. The other servants said Margaret had blessed hands, for even the simplest bread, when made by her, seemed worthy of the royal table. On the morning of the great banquet, while the sun still fought against the morning mist, Margaret was already up, kneading dough for the special breads she had created for the occasion. Golden braids with Eastern spices, little rose-shaped rolls, and the great ceremonial bread decorated with the coat of arms of the 2 united kingdoms. Queen Isabella descended to the kitchens that morning, something rare to happen. Her green velvet dress dragged across the stone floor, and her haughty gaze examined every detail. When her eyes landed on Margaret, her nose wrinkled as if she had smelled something unpleasant. "You are the baker?" asked the Queen, though she knew very well who Margaret was. "Yes, Your Majesty," Margaret replied, making a deep curtsy, her hands still covered in flour. "Make certain everything is perfect. I will not tolerate a simple peasant ruining the most important day of my daughter's life. And wash those filthy hands before touching anything that goes to the royal table." Margaret lowered her eyes. "Yes, Your Majesty, everything will be perfect." The Queen left without another word, leaving behind only the echo of her footsteps and the cloying perfume of roses that always accompanied her. The other servants looked at Margaret with pity, but she only smiled gently and returned to work. She was accustomed to the noble's disdain. Meanwhile, high in the East Tower, Princess Catherine was preparing for the feast. Her ladies dressed her in a sky-blue silk gown, embroidered with silver threads that captured light like stars. But what drew the most attention was the necklace resting on her pale neck, a masterpiece of goldsmithery with rubies as large as dove eggs, set in pure gold. It was a family heirloom, passed from mother to daughter for 7 generations. They said it had been a gift from an ancient king to his beloved when dragons still flew through the skies. "This necklace is worth more than an entire village," Catherine boasted to her ladies. "Prince Edward will be even more impressed when he sees me wearing it tonight." But what no one knew, not even her mother, was that Princess Catherine hid a terrible secret. In recent months, she had developed a dangerous addiction, gambling. It had started innocently, betting a few gold coins on horse races during the summer fair, but the addiction had grown like a weed, and now she owed a fortune to moneylenders who frequented taverns outside the castle walls. They had given her an ultimatum: pay by the next full moon, or they would tell everything to the Queen. When the sun set and the first stars began to shine, the great hall of the castle filled with light and music. Hundreds of candles illuminated the space, minstrels played cheerful melodies, and nobility from various kingdoms danced and conversed animatedly. The main table was laden with the finest delicacies, and in the center, Margaret's magnificent ceremonial bread was admired by all. Margaret circulated discreetly through the hall, ensuring the bread baskets were always full. She observed everything with attentive but humble eyes, keeping to the shadows, as befitted a servant. She watched Princess Catherine dancing with Prince Edward, the ruby necklace capturing the candlelight with each movement. Prince Edward was a young man of noble bearing and gentle gaze. Unlike many nobles, he treated everyone with courtesy, whether they were dukes or stable hands. During the dance, he whispered sweet words to the princess, who smiled, but her eyes betrayed an uneasiness only she knew the reason for. It was during the third dance, a lively tarantella that made all couples spin around the hall, that it happened. The princess, claiming to be warm, removed the heavy necklace and placed it on a side table, near a wine jug. "I'll return to get it in a moment," she told the prince, who accompanied her to take fresh air on the terrace. Margaret passed by the table at that moment, collecting empty plates and replenishing bread. She noticed the necklace there, gleaming under the candlelight, and for a brief moment admired its beauty. She had never seen such magnificent jewels up close, but she quickly looked away and continued her work. She had learned early that admiring what didn't belong to her only brought sadness. Half an hour passed. The princess returned from the terrace, her cheeks flushed from wine and the fresh night air. She went to the table to retrieve her necklace, but her sudden screams silenced the music and conversations. "My necklace! The ruby necklace has disappeared!" Panic settled in the hall like a wave. Guards ran to block all exits. The music ceased abruptly. Queen Isabella rose from her throne, her face pale with fury. "Who would dare?" she roared. "Who would dare steal from the royal family?" It was then that her eyes landed on Margaret, who stood paralyzed near the table, still holding a basket of bread. "It was her!" shouted the Queen, pointing an accusing finger. "I saw her near the table. The baker stole the necklace." Margaret dropped the basket, the breads rolling across the polished floor. "No, Your Majesty, I swear I didn't touch the necklace. By my children, I swear I am innocent." "Liar!" Princess Catherine vociferated, approaching with flaming eyes. "You've always envied what you cannot have. You thought you could sell the necklace and stop being a wretch." "Search her," ordered the Queen. 2 guards approached, and before all the nobles present searched Margaret. They found nothing but a small piece of dry bread she kept in her pocket to eat later, as she hadn't had time for dinner. "She must have hidden it somewhere," the princess insisted. "Search her quarters, search the kitchen." While guards ran off to fulfill the orders, Margaret fell to her knees in the center of the hall, tears streaming down her tired face. "Your Majesty, I beg you. I am an honest woman. I've worked in this castle for 10 years. I've never taken even a coin that wasn't mine. My children would starve before I would dishonor my late husband with theft." But the Queen didn't want to listen. She descended from her throne and walked to Margaret, her heels echoing threateningly in the hall's silence. "A poor baker," she said, her voice dripping venom, "always watching what she can never have, years kneading bread while seeing silks and jewels. The temptation was finally too much for you, wasn't it?" The nobles began whispering among themselves. Some shook their heads in disapproval. Others seemed to pity the poor, kneeling woman. Prince Edward frowned. Something about this scene didn't seem right to him. It was then that Lucas the Wise, royal counselor, and a man known for his wisdom and justice, stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said in his calm, deep voice, "allow me to suggest we conduct a complete search of the entire castle. If the necklace was stolen, the thief may not have had time to take it far. And perhaps we should question everyone who was near the table." The Queen was about to protest, but the King, who until then had been observing everything in silence from his throne, spoke for the first time. "Lucas is right. Let a complete search be done." While guards searched every corner of the castle, a young page named Thomas watched everything from a dark corner. His face was pale, and his hands trembled visibly. Prince Edward, always observant, noticed the boy's strange behavior. "Young man," he called, approaching gently, "are you well? You seem disturbed." The page tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. He looked at the princess, then at Margaret, still kneeling, and his eyes filled with tears. "My lord," he whispered, I saw something." "What did you see?" asked Edward, now with all attention focused on the boy. I'm afraid to speak." The prince placed his hand gently on the page's shoulder. If you saw something that can help find the truth, it is your duty to speak. Justice is more important than fear." It was as if a dam had burst. The page began speaking rapidly, words tumbling over each other. I saw Princess Catherine. After she placed the necklace on the table, she returned when she thought no one was looking. She took the necklace and quickly went out to the garden. I followed her because I thought I had seen something strange. She buried the necklace under the white rose bush, the one near the fountain. A deathly silence fell over the hall. All eyes turned to Princess Catherine, whose face had lost all color. "Lies!" she screamed. "This page is lying. He must be in collusion with the baker." But Lucas the Wise had already given orders to the guards. "Go to the garden. Search under the white rose bush." The minutes that followed seemed like hours. Margaret remained kneeling, trembling. Princess Catherine tried to maintain composure, but her eyes betrayed her dread. Queen Isabella looked between her daughter and the baker, confusion evident on her face. Then the guards returned. In their hands, covered with dirt, was the ruby necklace. The hall exploded in shocked murmurs. The Queen staggered as if she had been struck. Prince Edward closed his eyes, disappointment evident in his features. "Catherine," said the Queen, her voice no more than a whisper, "what does this mean?" The princess, seeing there was no escape, burst into tears. Between sobs, the shameful truth emerged. I have debts, Mother. Gambling debts. I bet on races, on dice, on everything. I owe so much gold that I planned to blame someone for the theft and then find the necklace to sell it secretly to the southern merchants." "But why Margaret?" asked Lucas the Wise. "Why did you choose specifically her?" The princess lowered her head, tears falling on her expensive dress. Because she's just a baker. I thought no one would believe her against me. She has no powerful friends, no influence. It would be her word against mine, and I am the princess." The confession fell upon the hall like lightning. Queen Isabella covered her face with her hands, shame burning more than any fire. The nobles present murmured, scandalized. Prince Edward stepped forward. He removed the engagement ring from his finger and placed it on the table. "I cannot marry someone capable of such vileness," he said, his voice laden with sadness and disgust. "To accuse an innocent, a hard-working mother, simply because you consider her inferior, this reveals a character I cannot accept as wife and future queen of my kingdom." He turned to Margaret, still kneeling, and extended his hand to help her rise. "Lady Margaret, in the name of all present, I ask your forgiveness for the injustice you have suffered tonight." Margaret accepted the extended hand, rising on trembling legs. She looked around, seeing the ashamed faces of nobles who minutes before were ready to condemn her. It was then that the king rose. His voice echoed through the hall with authority. "What shame has fallen upon our house this night? An innocent was humiliated before all, unjustly accused, while the true culprit was she who should set an example of honor and justice." He turned to Margaret. "Lady Margaret, the kingdom owes you great reparation. I decree that you shall receive 1,000 gold coins as compensation for this injustice. Your 3 children will be educated in the castle school alongside the children of nobles. And you shall be promoted to head baker, with a salary worthy of your talent and character." Then he turned to his daughter. "Princess Catherine, since you have shown such contempt for those you consider inferior, you will learn the value of honest work. For 1 year, you will work in the kitchens under the supervision of she whom you unjustly accused. Margaret will be your teacher, and you will learn from her not only how to make bread, but also humility and honor. And as for the necklace," continued the king, "it will be sold. The gold will be distributed among the kingdom's poor, so that something good may come from this night of shame." Queen Isabella, finally finding her voice, took a few steps toward Margaret. For the first time in her life, the proud queen knelt before a servant. "Forgive me," she said, genuine tears streaming down her face. "My pride and prejudice blinded me. I judged you by your position, not by your character. I saw your simple clothes and calloused hands, and assumed you were inferior. But tonight I learned that true nobility is not in blood or titles, but in the heart. Margaret, with tears in her own eyes, helped the Queen to rise. Your Majesty, rise. Forgiveness is freely given. We all make mistakes. What matters is learning from our errors. The months that followed brought remarkable changes to Rosevale Castle. Princess Catherine, initially resistant and bitter, was gradually transformed by work in the kitchens. Hands that once only knew silks and jewels learned to knead bread. Feet that only danced in marble halls learned to stand for hours on cold stone. But most surprising was the friendship that blossomed between her and Margaret. The baker, instead of treating the princess with resentment, showed her kindness and patience. She taught her not only the art of bread-making, but also the joy of honest work, the pride of creating something with one's own hands, and the satisfaction of feeding others. "You know," said Catherine one day as they pulled warm loaves from the oven, "I had everything and wasn't happy. Now, covered in flour and with calloused hands, I feel a peace I never knew." Margaret smiled. "It's because now your heart is light, without the weight of lies and pride. Bread rises when it's light, and so does the soul." Queen Isabella also changed. She began visiting the kitchens regularly, not to supervise with arrogance, but to learn and converse with the servants. She discovered their stories, their families, their joys and sorrows. For the first time in her life, she saw people beyond their titles and positions. Margaret's children thrived in the castle school. The eldest showed talent for letters and became a scribe. The middle child revealed skill with numbers and apprenticed with the royal treasurer. And the youngest, to everyone's surprise, had such a beautiful voice that he became part of the royal choir. As for Prince Edward, he returned to his kingdom, but not without first establishing correspondence with Lucas the Wise about matters of justice and governance. Years later, when he became king, his kingdom became known as the most just of all, where nobles and commoners were treated equally before the law. And young Page Thomas, his courage in speaking the truth was rewarded. The king took him as a pupil, saying, "A kingdom needs men brave enough to speak the truth, even when it's difficult." Thomas grew to become one of the kingdom's most respected knights, known not for his strength, but for his unwavering integrity. At the end of Catherine's year of service, a great feast was organized, not an ostentatious party, but a simple celebration in the kitchens, where nobles and servants ate together the bread made by the princess. That night, Catherine made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I've learned more this year than in all my previous years of life. Therefore, I choose to continue working in the kitchens a few hours each day. Not as punishment, but as a reminder that true value lies in honest work and upright character." And so, the Kingdom of Rosevale became known not for its wealth or power, but for its justice. Travelers from distant lands came to see the castle where the princess made bread, where the queen conversed with servants, and where a humble baker was treated with the same respect as a duke. On cold winter nights, when families gathered around the fire, grandparents told their grandchildren this story, and they always ended with the same lesson: "Remember, children, that gold may shine and jewels may fascinate, but nothing gleams more than an honest heart. True nobility doesn't come from birth, but from character. And never ever judge someone by their clothes or position, for often the humblest are the noblest, and those in high towers may have the lowest souls." And Margaret, she lived long and happy years, seeing her children prosper, making her bread with love, and always reminding everyone with her silent example that dignity needs no crown, and that hands calloused by honest work are worth more than 1,000 gold rings. They say that to this day, if you visit the ruins of old Rosevale Castle, you can still smell fresh bread in the ancient kitchens, and that the white rose bush where the necklace was buried never again bore red flowers, only white ones, like the purity that finally prevailed on that fateful night. And so ends our story, with the certainty that truth, however much they try to bury it, always finds its way to the light, and that justice, though it may tarry, always prevails over lies and prejudice.